And then you have all these gurus on Instagram to tell you, well, if you don't have a viral reel, or if you're not using these catchwords, you will never amount to anything, or you won't get people to sign up. I realized quickly that my niche, whatever you want to say, are people who don't like social media. So how am I going to find people like me? Because always your client is someone based upon who is similar to you. How am I going to find people that aren't going down the Instagram rabbit hole or doing that kind of social media? Now, I will say be careful out there, because I think podcast is almost the new Instagram, where there are predators out there. Meaning that there's somebody's like, hey, we can get you booked on so many podcasts. You're going to get so much return on investment for this amount of dollars, or give us this information. I'll use a lot of my podcasts that they'll have it on YouTube. So I can take that video, chop them down, make reels out of them.
If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now let's get to it with today's guest. Welcome, Amy. I'm super excited to have you here. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience.
My name is Amy Wilson. I am a Board Certified Geriatric Pharmacist, a certified nutrition coach, and a certified fitness professional. So I use all three of those things, and I call myself the nutrition coach pharmacist. So I started a long time ago. I've been in the fitness industry since I was 16. So
Holy cow.
I know. I mean, okay, so let's put it this way. Jane Fonda, leotards, leg warmers, you get the picture, right? So I've been doing this a long time, and I have nutrition coached a long time too. And recently, I won't say recently, because I think I was probably a virtual coach before virtual was even a thing. It was Facebook. Before really Instagram took off, it was doing Facebook groups and helping people get healthier and giving my knowledge during that time. And yeah, so I love the fact that all three of my modalities, fitness, nutrition, and pharmacy, have come together, because what I want to do is really help people get healthy, stop chasing skinny. Menopausal women, we can live our best life right now. And the big, I would say, looking at the big picture, is to keep you healthy, to keep you out of my nursing homes, and to prevent and reverse disease, because we really want to thrive. We don't want to feel our age. We want to be able to be healthy and do all the things and really, I hate to say it, but quote unquote, live our best life.
Absolutely. I absolutely love it. And I came from more of a traditional medical background as well. I was a registered nurse. That was my schooling. That's what I did for a few years out of school. And I, obviously in the online space now, not anywhere near health and fitness, but I have journeyed very far into just everything else that there is for keeping people healthy.
Yeah.
And I love what you're doing. So that is phenomenal. Now, have you always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial bug, or is this something that's more recent? Like, yeah.
I've always had a side hustle.
Oh,
I've never had just one job. So I've always had something else. And, you know, whether it's the entrepreneurial spirit or if it's just because I like to have my fingers in other things and keep myself, I won't say keep myself busy, but keep myself, just passionate. I'm always passionate about something. And it's always been kind of health related. So I've always taught. So I've always been an instructor for fitness. Like I said, I started that when I was 16, 17 and have continued with that. And then, you know, there's always there's little like things were MLM before, so maybe nails, maybe some makeup, but my passion is health. It's really nutrition and health, and that's what I absolutely love doing.
When did you get going into the online space? When did you start to recognize this as an opportunity to serve people and to reach new people with what you do?
I kind of fell into it. I was a master trainer for a program that was meaning that I would go and teach other instructors how to teach this national program. And part of the program was a nutrition part, and I was head of the nutrition. And because the program was all based all over the United States, the only way to reach everybody was to do a Facebook group. It's so much easier than trying to email back and forth, and people could have real-time. You could have real-time chats. You could do the lives. People could come back and see it. You could have the interactions between people. So it kind of just fell into that group, that Facebook Live space, and it just grew from there.
That is so cool. So what year was that?
That was, well, it's definitely pre-COVID. So 2014, 2015.
Oh, so that was quite a bit ago. That's awesome. Yeah. Isn't it funny though how it's pre or post COVID?
Yeah.
All of our timelines now. That's sad. No, okay. So it started with online nutrition and teaching this program. And so it sounds like Facebook groups was sort of your community for an existing program that people were coming into, and that's how they were getting the content. Mm-hmm. So walk me through how you branched from that into like generating your own clients.
Yeah. So like everything has seasons, right? So you one season ends, another season starts. So I stopped doing the master training. I stopped with that program, kind of had to find myself, if that makes sense. Sometimes I was burned out. Honestly, I was burned out. I was giving so much of myself and not taking care of me. Oh Lord, perimenopause, menopause hits, and trying to get me back. All of a sudden I'm getting inches, and I'm sure, anybody listening to this understands this, if they're in this realm, and that I just wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling me, and had to take some time back. And during that time, I was like trying everything. I was trying keto. I was trying all these different programs and trying to figure out what the heck is going on. Why is my body not responding? And was watching some friends of mine doing a program that was called Fast Way to Fat Loss, and really kind of diving into it and like, okay, there's science backed. That's me. I'm a pharmacist. Science is really speaking to me. Through a Hail Mary pass, decided to try this, and it was life-changing. And realizing that this is life-changing for me, this is going to be life-changing for other people, to stop dieting, to get themselves back, to find their mojo again. And I couldn't hold it. I'm like, I can't just sit here and be like, oh, this is great, and look at me, and I'm feeling great. I needed to tell other people. I needed to share my journey, because I knew if I was feeling like a failure, I was feeling like a loser, there were other people in the same kind of realm. And that really made me get back into the Facebook groups, the doing lives on my own Facebook page, getting my business page set up, and really spreading that message of hope, of realizing that, hey, our second chapter is not meant to end. That's our starting point. And that's what really got me back into creating another group, creating the lives on the Facebook, and then also kind of diving into a website and Instagram. So there's kind of all these things have evolved over time. Yep. And I always tell people, it's like, well, how do you start? I'm like, just start. Don't think you have to do all of the things at once, because it will burn you out. And do something, find something that's your passion, do it well. And then when it becomes second nature, then you move on and increase your reach with something else.
Yeah. I think that's a really important lesson, especially for new people starting, is that there are infinite ways to do this. And they try to do them all at once. And that's a surefire way to fail.
Yeah.
It's not how a successful business gets started. One thing, narrow it down, simplify, get that working for you, and then you can add as you go. So I love that. Now, I'm curious, did it start as just sharing the information before the business side started? Or like, how did that happen?
It did. So I became what was called an ambassador for this program.
Oh.
And like I said, I was burned out. I was done with coaching people. I was coaching thousands of people in this other group, and with that program. And I was like, you know what? I just don't know if I want to get into that realm again, but I have to share my story. And I'm like, you know what? I can just share my story. I can just become an ambassador. I'll get some money with this, and wasn't thinking anything of it. And then people were like, well, why aren't you coaching? Why aren't you doing this? And even my husband said, when I said, you know, I think I'm gonna get back in the coaching realm. And he's like, well, it's about time. Yeah. I was like, well, why didn't you say anything? He's like, well, I knew you'd come to it eventually, but it's what you do. He's like, that's you. That's what you do. And it was one of those kind of push. I kind of dipped my toe in the water, was ambassador, sharing my story. And then people were saying, well, what are you doing? And how can I do this? And they're like, well, we want you to coach. We want you to be our coach. And that's how it got started again.
I love that it was so organic, that it was just heart-driven, just love what it was, passionate about it. And then it just kind of sucked you in.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. It definitely sucked me in.
So at this point, how long ago was that? How long have you been doing this specific business?
3.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm sure there's been some lessons learned on that journey.
Yes.
And some challenges that you've had to overcome. So walk us through some of that, because there's a lot of people who are just looking at a hill, a giant mountain in front of them, and they're, just at the beginning stages or just getting ready to get ready. And those challenges are so common, and your insight on what those were for you and how you overcame them, I think that would be really helpful.
The one thing I can tell people is put blinders on. Put blinders on, because you start having that comparison where you're looking at this Instagram influencer or this person, and you're like, well, why isn't that me? Why can't that be me? Or they try to be that person, and it's not genuinely you. And that can, one, just make you feel horrible and not make you want to do the coaching or do whatever you're doing, because you're like, but I'm not them. They're doing this and they're having hundreds of followers. I only have 1,000. Well, that's okay. And realize, and this was me, I'm going to tell you right now, I put too much stake in Instagram. I thought Instagram was the end all be all, because that's where everybody else was, right? Everybody's blowing up on the platform. They're doing reels, and their reels are going viral. And then you have all these gurus on Instagram to tell you, well, if you don't have a viral reel, or if you're not using these catchwords, you will never amount to anything, or you won't get people to sign up. I realized quickly that my niche, whatever you want to say, are people who don't like social media. So how am I going to find people like me? Because always your client is someone based upon who is similar to you. How am I going to find people that aren't going down the Instagram rabbit hole or doing that kind of social media? Because I will be honest, I'm Gen X. Gen X, we're Facebook, right? So
yeah.
We're mainly, we do have Instagram, but we do a lot of Facebook. We also go for blogs and we go for podcasts. And I realized actually this year, so I've been doing this 3.5 years, decided that podcasting was where I needed to go, because I listen to podcasts. I know my friends listen to podcasts, and knew those were the kind of clients that were invested. Those are the clients who will sit down and listen to something for 20 minutes, maybe even an hour, to gain insight and information. Still doing the Instagram just because I want people to be able, if they go to my website, they're able to see a cohesiveness with my whole entire business, but not putting so much stake or stressing myself out about having a reel per day or so many stories or so many posts that people will tell you that you have to do in order to get anything for the algorithm to pick you up.
So understanding your target audience that's a massive lesson that everybody listening should really understand, is that it's not just about what other marketers and gurus are telling you to do. You got to know your people, and your people might be more on podcasts. They might be more and on a different platform. And so you have to really be in tune with that. So I think that's an important one for everybody to pick up on. So walk us through your podcast strategy. So how has that evolved? Like, what are you, how did you get started with it? And then how have you dialed that in to really create, sales, get clients through the door?
Well, my first couple podcasts were horrible. I call my dress rehearsals, and it's oh man, they were horrible. And it's learning how to speak and giving yourself that grace too. We never start out as a professional ever. Yeah. And I learned something from every podcast that I'm on. I learned something about a better call to action. Who am I speaking to in these podcasts? Because every podcast, even though they might be similar, have a different target audience. And knowing who I'm speaking to, and then not really worrying about, I would say, and this is good, people are like, what do you mean you're not worrying? I'm not worrying about the return on investment. I'm not worrying about, is this podcast going to be viral? I'm not worrying about if I'm trying to sell somebody. I'm going to share my knowledge. I'm going to share the education, those little golden nuggets with people, and build that trust with somebody, because I honestly want to be everybody's coach / BFF, because it's a very intimate relationship with a coach. If you don't feel a connection with your coach, you're not going to be successful. And that is what podcasting has done. My first ones, they were bad. And I had an agency that first helped me book podcasts. I'm on several different podcasts. I would say message boards, or also like lists where people can go and find me. And it's just been growing those. And then I'm also now, because I've been on so many podcasts that people hear me who are also hosts that reach out and say, hey, you would be a really good fit for my audience. Would you be willing to come on? Knowing that it's going to be same thing of anything, it's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be some weeks that you'll be booked out, and there's some weeks that you'll be like, whew, okay, this is a break. This is great. And understand that finding what's good for you. I love to talk. I knew that I love to present. I've been a presenter for years, whether it was fitness or something else. And knowing that when I can get my voice out there and talk and tell stories and give examples and really educate and help people, that was I would say my superpower. And that is why podcasts have been good for me. And now I do pitch my own. I pitch myself. I don't have someone pitching for me. And that does take time. And that does take some, looking up certain podcasts or making sure that it's a good fit. And understanding that just because I'm not always going on a health podcast. This isn't a health podcast, right?
Right.
So but knowing that there's going to be somebody who will take value from any podcast that you're on. And being open to that, very much being open to that.
Right. And I think that's such an important factor is that relatability factor that you're kind of hinting at, in all these responses, is that, people want to feel like they can see a little bit of themselves in you. Like, people want to learn from others who are like them. And that's why, when you're looking at those influencers on Instagram, or the big celebrity guru who has millions of followers and all that, yeah, they're doing well. But there's a large portion of that audience that, yeah, they may follow them, but that guru is so unrelatable to them. That celebrity that always looks perfect in their pictures is so unrelatable to them that, they're never going to be the customer for that person.
I'm not going to hire a 20-something-year-old fitness and nutrition coach off of Instagram, although I might take inspiration from her pictures.
Well, the other thing you have to look at is those multi-million dollars that you're spending. Are you really going to talk to that person, or are you going to talk to one of their other people? And that's the same thing. It's like, you're never going to touch them. People have my phone number. They have my email address. It is me responding to them. And I think that's huge, because the bottom line is we all want relationships. We all want to communicate. As I was reading an article today that one of a grocery store is pulling out the self-checkout because they saw the value of the interaction with the employee, with the cashier. And I feel that is kind of the same thing. There's a value into having that personal connection. Even though I do virtual training, I still do Zooms, I still do phone calls. There's still that personal connection that you can't get with somebody who's pawned it off on an assistant or a VA. You just can't.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the other thing is that, like you said, you could be following this guru, you could sign up for the program, you can even pay, $5,000-$10,000, and they're still going to push you off to, a trained assistant that has not created the same success as the guru has. And there's that relationship is just not there. And I remember in our business, it was the same way. Like, when we were first trying to promote, at the time, it was a network marketing opportunity. And we had zero success marketing our opportunity to our friends and family. Doing the offline stuff was zero success. And so when we went online and we started, creating an Instagram account and a Facebook page and putting content out there and pictures and videos and started running ads, our production value was so much lower than the others, right? Like we could look at it, it's like, oh, wow, this really sucks. But we did it anyways. And the thing is, we still generate, those first videos that we put on YouTube were absolutely horrible. The information was good, but the production value, the background, the imagery, the lighting, we knew nothing about anything, but we put ourselves out there and we generated leads and we generated sales from it just because we put the work in. And I think because people also saw us as relatable. We didn't have to be, light years ahead of them. We just had to be one step ahead of where they were. And what people really wanted is they wanted to see someone who was like them that was getting them the result that they wanted. And that's all. And for them, that was the most valuable thing because that made it attainable for them. Mm-hmm. When they saw us, just one step ahead, actually generating leads online, they wanted to learn from us how to generate leads. They didn't want to learn from the guru. They wanted to learn from us because they saw us as much more relatable and much more like them. And if we could do it, then, in their minds, well, then they can do it.
Yeah, I think relatable is the key word right there. And they saw where you came from and how you were growing. And it's being that like, oh, if they can do it and they use the XYZ, I should be able to do this too. And knowing that I can talk to you. I can get you on the phone if I need to, or whatever your form of communication is. And knowing that if I want to get this big guru on the phone, that's not going to happen. Good luck. Not happening.
No, absolutely. So I'm curious, you mentioned how you've gotten yourself on some lists. So how to be a guest on podcasts, get in some directories. Yeah. How did you find those? And what are some tips you can share on how to do that?
So there's one called podcastguest.com. So I'll leave it's a really good one. That one is, I'll be honest, you do have to pay for that one. But they give you your own one sheet, and it's a place where podcasts can go and podcast hosts can go and look you up. There are also lots of Facebook groups out there where I actually was on a podcast, and she was like, we were talking at the end, and she's like, you really need to get in these groups because this is where I find people. And I'm like, oh, so it was like kind of always be willing to network and talk to others. Sometimes in the green room before a podcast or after a podcast is golden to where I'm talking to the host. Sometimes those hosts have become clients, and it's learning from them and some maybe their tips or their tricks that are just so valuable. So those golden nuggets. And those are some of the best things. Now, I will say be careful out there because I think podcast is almost the new Instagram where there are predators out there. Meaning that there's somebody's like, hey, we can get you booked on so many podcasts. You're going to get so much return on investment for this amount of dollars, or give us this information. And just be careful with that. Like any industry, there's going to be people out there taking advantage of somebody who wants it so bad to break through or to be big. They are going to prey on that feeling that you want.
So how do you take a podcast, an interview where you're giving value and you're showing your personality, doing all those good things? How do you actually make sales from that? Like, what's that strategy?
So there is a call to action, and absolutely. So, and it's not like, like I said, I'm not there to sell, but I'm going to give the information out there to get you started. And the call to action is to go to my website, which is amykwilson.com. And it's what you don't want to do is have 18 different call to actions, meaning like, right. Don't go, here's my Facebook group. Here's my LinkedIn. Here's my Instagram, because people are usually driving. And yes, there's show notes, but send them to one place. So I'll send them to my website and be like, okay, I want to get you started. I want you to start today without any money, without any obligation, but I want you to get healthy and I want you to start losing inches. I want you to start losing chronic inflammation. I want you to start feeling like yourself again. Send me a message on my website, amykwilson.com, keyword digital trailblazer. So if you want to do it right now, it's keyword digital trailblazer, and I'm going to send you a 5-day guide. And in this guide, it has some more information of everything I talked about on this podcast, but it also is going to give you recipes and meal guides to take the guesswork out of feeling frustrated, take the guesswork out of trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, because we all want to kind of be told what to do and have a blueprint. And this is what I'm going to give you, a 5-day blueprint to help you get started. That's absolutely for free. You just have to message me on amykwilson.com.
That's how it's done, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
Yeah, and that's what I like about that, is that it's easy for people to do, right? It's simple and it's low resistance. There's so many times when we have people come in, and when we do an initial audit of, how are they trying to promote their business? What do they have a website? Do they have a funnel? What do they got going on? It's like they've got one thing, and it's a sales page. And there's nothing on the sales page except for put in your credit card and here's how much it's going to charge you. And they expect people to just come to the sales page and buy just because they created. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well, that's not how sales are done. You've got one touch point, and it's the highest resistance touch point possible. This is like asking somebody to marry you the very first time you see them, right? And it's like, marketing doesn't work that way. And what I love about what you're doing is that it's simple, it's low resistance, it gets people into your atmosphere, into your, into your world. And then after they take that first step, then you can take the next step.
Yeah.
And then you can increase the resistance level of the next steps until they become a client. And it's a system, and it creates a journey for people that makes sense, that actually takes them through that decision-making process. Because there are so many people out there that they think that, I want to just market to the buyers. I want to market to people who are ready to buy and join right now, who are decisive and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, that's great. But the thing is that those are the most expensive people to market to. Those are the people that are being like inundated with ads from every other guru who have, a million times the marketing budget that you do. Mm-hmm. And, even when you do get those people as a customer, there's so few of them. Like, that's such a small percentage of your audience that it is much more profitable to go after the 67% of your audience that you can get in with a freebie as a first step.
And I'll be totally honest with you guys. That was a process to learn those things. And it was something that was evolving. The call to action before was just go to my website or you can go / whatever. And it wasn't as, I would say, get you in there to really kind of paint the picture of what I'm trying to say and what I'm trying to convey. And I always love it. When I say with clients who are just starting out and trying to do all the things, I'm like, it's baby steps. It's a process. It's progress over perfection. And understand that you will grow, and we have to make mistakes. If anybody starts out, I'm a one-woman show. I'm a one-woman show. If anybody starts out just all pretty shiny and everything's perfect, they have a lot of money to spend on a whole entire team to do everything for them. Yeah. And be okay with learning. Be okay with making some mistakes and learning. And it's like, okay, well, this didn't work. Why didn't it work? And be like, okay, well, let me pivot a little bit and figure out the next best thing that maybe it'll be a little bit better call to action. Maybe it'll be a little bit better that's going to resonate with somebody. And just like I said, always just consistency, show up, progress over perfection, and just take a deep breath sometimes.
Yeah, and be ready for what I like is that you're building a real business. You're getting the foundation laid. You're not just going for the quick win. Like it's a process, it's a journey. Let's walk them through it and be okay walking, and that it doesn't have to be a sprint the whole time. So when you get people off a podcast or going to your website, I assume they're going to be added to an email list. Like, walk us through your whole strategy there.
So I use a an email server. So there's a flow. And so you get the 5 days. So you get the nice little guide. There'll be a follow-up after that guide, about 2 or 3 emails, and you're put on to my newsletter also. So that newsletter comes out twice a month. And then in those newsletters will be call to actions. I offer free coaching in those newsletters. There's also signups if somebody wants to sign up for the 6-week program. And there will always be value added in those newsletters too. I do a blog, so there'll be a blog in there. There might be recipes. There might be tips. It's the holidays coming up. If I'm not sure when this is airing, but there's always something going on. And there's always holidays going on. So it's these tips and trips on how to navigate. And so it's building that trust factor. It's building that flow in that funnel. My biggest takeaway from that is to make my newsletters short and sweet. People don't have time. And especially most people are reading them on the phone, and understanding that my audience, a lot of them are midlifers. So the print can't be small. And because you don't want them just to hit the delete button, and make it where it's valuable, to where they're getting something out of it, and building that trust factor. And eventually, like you said, you'll have some people who sign up like right there. You have those people who sign up just right now. But there's some people who have come back to me 3.5 years later going, okay, now's my time. I'm ready.
I always love those. We'll occasionally get those, and you talk to somebody, well, when did you first get connected with us? And they're like, I've actually been watching you. And it's like 3, 4, 5 years ago. And you're like, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. They just got to incubate for a while till they're ready to launch, and that's okay.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, and a lot of times it's timing. We'll always say, well, nothing's right. It's right now is the right time. Everybody has their own timing, and they come to their decision on their timeline. And I'm okay with that. And I always tell people when they're like, I'm really looking at this, I'm like, I am here when you are ready. I am here for you. You just let me know when the timing's right for you, when you're ready, and we'll get started.
And I like what you said about, increasing the font size of the emails, things like that. But it's not just because, I'm Gen X too. And it's like, I'm having to go from 12-point font to 14-point font, now 16-point font. But it's also, we live in a mobile-centric world now. Like, marketing used to be laptops and computers. And now marketing is primarily mobile phone. And so even though we're building our funnels on a laptop, even though we're creating our Facebook ads and stuff on a laptop, you always need to build it with mobile first mentality. So we're always looking at the mobile preview to make sure that it looks good first on a mobile device. With Facebook ads, we know that 80 to 90% of our traffic from Facebook and Instagram ads is going to be from mobile devices. So we always format for that first. The same thing with your landing pages. If you've got a freebie, a lead magnet, or whatever that you're giving away, podcast, you need to format those landing pages for your freebies for a mobile device first. Make sure you're checking that. One of the I'll never forget this. One of the very first funnels that we put together, we did a split test, and one of them had a much larger opt-in form just right front and center, and then the other one kind of had it off to the side, and it was very small. And on the laptop that we were creating it on, it seemed fine. Like the one that had the opt-in form to the side was actually a prettier page on a laptop. Didn't even think to look at it on mobile. And what we found out was that we had almost 0 conversions on the one that was designed better. And what we later found out was because most of our traffic was mobile traffic, and people couldn't tap in the right place to get to the opt-in form. And just a simple little thing like that, because we live in a mobile-centric world. So just everything we do now, we're always looking to a mobile device first. How does it look there? Is it formatted well? Is it functional on a mobile device? Is a font big enough to read it? Even when you're doing webinars or challenges or any sort of live video, like if you're presenting a testimonial on a PowerPoint slide, like if you take a screenshot of a testimonial and then you reduce it down and you put it on a PowerPoint slide, and you've got multiple of them on there, and you're trying to look at that on a mobile device, there's no way they're going to be able to read those testimonials. So you got to be able to figure out a way to present those in a way that people can actually see what's happening in those testimonials. So yeah, it's a great point that Let's increase the font. Let's make sure that people can read it when it's on a small device.
Yeah, and it's like I'll use a lot of my podcasts that they'll have it on YouTube, so I can take that video, chop them down, make reels out of them, and it's the same thing. It's like if I see a reel and I can't read it, swipe.
Yep.
And being understanding of what my audience is, and I think that's anybody too. It's not just, I would say Gen X, but if you can't read it, it's like, oh, there's too many words here. I'm not spending this much time reading all these words, and I think that helps when you condense it, make it more relatable, make it more just, I would say prettier, but sometimes you need to make it prettier to bring and capture and bring somebody into it.
I think as a society, everyone, because I am not Gen X, but but I think everyone has gotten, I hate not a nice word, but lazier essentially. Yeah. Like if I see like a block of text, I am not going to read it. In the middle of doing X, Y, and Z, and I'm just glancing at something, it's got to be like, there's got to be plenty of white space on that screen. It's got to be bullet pointed. Like I'm a mom on the go, running a business, right? And so I think that's something to keep in mind as well. No matter who you're marketing to, everyone's getting a shorter attention span and everyone's getting a little bit lazier in like reading and everything else. So keeping it super simple is key for people to actually engage.
Right. And even because you mentioned, you've got a little chat bot, or, even if you're doing text message marketing, that's another thing, is that you can't just copy and paste this big long pitch and send it to somebody. And it's like, it's one message and they got to scroll through the whole thing and it's obvious that this is just copied and pasted. Right. And so
I don't know about you, but I hate those things when someone just copies some, hey girl, how are you? And it's like, that first thing is like delete. And it's once again, it's that relationship and being relatable. You have to, that conversation, a copy and paste, it's just so, it's cold is what it is. It's cold, and I'm not doing cold calling, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're just another number in my coaching.
So I want to know what's next for you, like as you grow and potentially scale, like what's coming up for you and how are you going to do that?
So what is coming up is still looking at the processes, going back and looking at some Facebook ads I did before that just didn't work and seeing if that's even viable anymore. And I know some people have very good, because I'm looking at my click-throughs. Okay, it's like, so they clicked on it, but they didn't go to the next step. And really, I'm a data person, so I'm going to look at some of the data and see how I need to pivot. Podcasting is my strength. So I've been on 40 plus podcasts in the last 6 months. And so definitely keep working on the podcast, and maybe even outreaching to podcasts I never thought would be a possible fit, but actually is. And really looking at that. And then also looking at, I do a blog, keeping the blog going, the website, anything that I can have touch points with a possible client is what I'm going to be working on, and streamlining the newsletter, making sure that they are value added, because I think that's always important to be value added. And honestly, just not stressing out about Instagram and just being like, okay, that's just one slightly little platform. But I've been working so much on the back end of everything. Now it's time to see and go out there and do everything and see what happens.
I'm curious, do you have a Facebook group?
I have a Facebook group for my clients. And I also have a different Facebook group that is it's called Progress Over Perfection. That's just daily tips. I am seriously thinking about just doing a Facebook group that is I would say almost a lead generator. That is just a group of just information and allowing anybody to join and doing that. Yes, I am. That is in the process of.
Good, because that's what I was about to tell you to do. Make a life. Yes. And absolutely in this process, okay, what you talked about, getting them on the newsletter, yes. But if you can then invite them to the group as well.
Yes.
So they're not just hearing from you occasionally on the newsletter, but there's so much power in having someone in a Facebook group where you're doing live trainings once or twice a week, where they're able to interact with you, where you can do one-to-many, and that live video, the fastest way to build the know, like, and trust factor.
Yeah.
And like we teach our clients, yes, especially your generation, the people that you're targeting specifically, they're on Facebook. That's the reality of it, right? And so getting that Facebook group really dialed in and using it strategically, not so it's a time suck that's taking a bunch of resources from you, but that you're strategically booking calls from there. I will tell you, the hottest leads that we get, the hottest sales calls, where they're jumping on a discovery call and they're like, yep, I want to work. Like, let's move on. I want to have the sales call. Like, I'm ready to want to work with you, right? Where do they always come from? The Facebook group.
Yeah.
And especially moving into paid ads, which I do highly suggest, adding the Facebook group into your funnel, into your system, is because those Facebook ads people, they don't know you from a podcast.
Right.
They have no warmth to you. They're very, very cold, right? And so being able to get them in that Facebook group where all of a sudden you're going to become a real person, a relatable person who can really help them, that's magical. And that really helps you increase your return on investment on your ad spend.
See, people, when I talk about nuggets, that is one right there.
As far as getting people into the Facebook group, because I know that's where a lot of people struggle, is that even after somebody takes that first step, they don't necessarily take the second one. And so what I'll say is that what we will do is that we put content specifically in that Facebook group that we don't put other places. And that's what that's kind of the carrot that we bribe people with to get into the group, because we'll email our list. So everybody that's ever opted into something for us, every week we'll email them and say, hey, this week we're doing a live training on X, Y, and Z, right? If you want to catch this, or if you want to catch the replay, we're going to do this in our Facebook group. Click here to check it out now. If you haven't joined yet, here's how you join, right? So we're always prompting them at least once a week that, hey, there's a special training that we did only in our Facebook group. You have to join in order to get this. And so that's how we're getting them in there. And then obviously once we get them in there, there's other things that we do to book calls and to get them to raise their hand and to engage and get into a messenger conversation and all that. But yeah, that's one of the things that we're always doing with our list, is that after they take that first step, we're always pushing them towards that second step. And for us, that's our Facebook group.
Like I said, I've been thinking about that Facebook group. It's been on my radar, and I'm like, okay, this probably is pushing me, but I'm thinking December's a really good time, because especially in the fitness, nutrition, and health world, we all know what January 1st is. And they'll start thinking about it right after Thanksgiving, after they have that Thanksgiving meal, and be like, oh, I really should do something. And that's the perfect time to get that going.
I totally agree. So this has been so much fun, Amy. I think there's been some massive nuggets for everybody. So remind everybody, how do they connect with you? If they love what you're doing, they want to explore a little bit more and get some of your nuggets and guides to help them get healthier and to lose weight, how do they find you?
Absolutely. You can go to my website. It's www.amykwilson.com. And if you send me a message on there and just hit Digital Trailblazer, I will send you a free, no obligation, 5-day guide that will get you started on your health journey, because that's really what we want, is to feel good, prevent disease, and eat. Because I'm not going to tell you to starve. I'm going to tell you to eat. And so it has, recipes, all that good information right for you. Just mention Digital Trailblazer and I'll send it to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Amy.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.